Hey peeps, if you have not heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. First and foremost, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer, your laptop, or your pad. Anchor will then distribute these podcasts, no fee, everywhere. Spotify, Google, Apple Podcast, anywhere. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free app today, Anchor, Anchor, or go to Anchor, Anchor.fm to get started. You will have fun. Good day. Welcome to Rocking the Gray Matter with Doc Grigsby. That's me. This is where we will view the world through the lens of life and interaction, hopefully applying some common sense, empathy, and intelligent reasoning. The world is a crazy place. Let's explore it together. Good day to you. Welcome to Rocking the Gray Matter with Doc Grigsby. That would be me. It is September 22nd, 2020, and it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It has been a minute, peeps. It has been a minute. We have struggled. We have survived. We are still here. So I think it's time for us to gather again to talk about some issues. September is almost over, but September is and was Mental Health Awareness. And I think that this still is a valued subject, and even more important considering the current challenging, turbulent times of COVID-19. The good thing is that we've learned a lot these few months. We have some horrible, terrible statistics with mental health tragedies rising among adolescents and teens drastically. Many of our frontline workers are not only physically exhausted, but are also mentally exhausted. We can't forget those folks at home. Those working from home, those caring for children and working from home, those of us teachers who have gone back into the classroom per se, teaching from home. Life is still challenging. It's still turbulent. COVID cases are still on the rise pretty much throughout the country, and we are still practicing social distancing. Economy's getting a little better. Things are starting to open up. Schools are starting to open and close and open and close. So we are seeing changes. And with these last few months, we have come to grips with the fact that mental health is more important now than it ever has been. There was a fantastic guy by the name of Marcus Aurelius, I hope I pronounced that correctly. He was a Roman emperor. Now you're thinking, what is this? Look, the Romans had it going on, man. They were way ahead of their time. But he had a powerful statement to make, and he said that the quality of our day is up to each one of us. We have little power to choose what happens, but we have complete power over how we respond. It all starts with setting the expectations that make it clear that no matter how much hardship we encounter, how much pain and loss, dishonesty, ingratitude, unfairness, and jealousy, we can still choose peace and calm. And from that place of calm, or ataraxia, as the Greeks called it, we can much more effectively bring about change. Wow. That was a long time ago, and this cat had it going on. So let's think about how we can apply that to our day by day. We all have thoughts in our head, and sometimes those thoughts aren't very pleasant. And with all of the current events that are happening within our media and in our communities, sometimes it is difficult to get those thoughts out of our head. We call that rumination. We all worry, but sometimes we get stuck in that loop, that horrible, bad B movie that just won't go away. That's what we call life. To that point, it negatively affects your life. It keeps you from being productive. It keeps you from finding joy. It keeps you from developing your purpose. Rumination. Many of our experts have already said within the mental health field to distance yourself from media. Don't watch so much. Don't absorb so much of this negativity that we see in our communities and on social media. Negative bias. Negative bias is a term that we use a lot in the social sciences. We find ourselves stuck in these negative patterns. We see it all the time in our media, one side against the other side, calling each other names, violence, riots. As a result of that negative bias, our capacity to receive positive information gets shut down. All we focus on is the negative. Now, our brain and its glorious self is hardwired to react much more quickly to negative than positive. Why is that? Because it's trying to protect itself. The brain at all costs will protect itself. We see this in trauma victims and PTSD victims. If there's a negative situation, the brain shuts down and tries to not let you remember it. This is actually for survival. But negative bias occurs when we just persist and we ruminate and we dwell on the negative. And then we end up acting as if this is a huge catastrophe and we get stuck in this loop, this bad B movie. Sometimes that negative bias can cause us to have a threat response because we view it as a threat. We see this all the time in the streets when we have protest. The protest may start off peaceful, but then one side gets angry at the other side and they consider that a threat, and then they react negatively. Normally, our brain returns back to a baseline after the threat goes away. But what if in our mind's eye that threat never goes away, that it's always there every time we turn on the television, every time we open our social media, every time we talk to people on the street? That threat is constantly there. So now we're talking about triggering fight or flight. That sympathetic nervous system, that oh my gosh, that increased heart rate, increased respiratory rate, increased blood pressure, that anxiety, that inability to fall asleep at night. Now you're in an alarm mode, all because of this negative bias, this rumination, and your brain and your body reacting to what it considers to be a threat. So, physical signs, anxiety and pain, our brain handles that fairly well. But sometimes if it is constant, we tend to be overwhelmed. We are overstimulated, if you will. We become hypersensitive. This is classic PTSD. Loud sounds, noises, smells, crowds. They become hypersensitive due to that constant threat response. Anxious avoidance. Anxious avoidance is what we call that. Becoming hypersensitive to a constant threat. So now let's see where we are. First of all we want to think about is the negative. All we see is the negative. So we start to ruminate. We start to have these same ideas over and over, and they don't ever go away. Because of that, we focus on the negative, 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 negative. Our body and our brain perceives that as a threat response, so it pursues that threat response in the form of anxiety. And eventually, we go into a cognitive fog. Things are just fuzzy. It's like you're stuck in a bubble. If you undergo a period of sustained stress, and if you feel that stress is out of your control, then your brain starts to feel a little foggy, kind of like when you wake up after just a little bit of sleep. It makes it difficult for us to execute decisions, or perhaps to implement tasks at work or at home. Cognitive fog. And then there's inattention, just exactly what it says. Inattention. We're just not as sharp as we used to be. Because of all of this negativity that we've taken in and ruminated over, perceived it to be a threat, we've become anxious and depressed. We're living in a fog, our brain is foggy, and we just don't have the attention that we used to have. Your capacity to sustain attention over time, it just becomes disrupted. Basic functions become difficult. You feel exhausted at the end of the day, having done not much of anything. And then probably the last side effect that we see from all of this is what we call emotional numbness. Again, exactly what it sounds like. A loss of the ability to feel pleasure from usual activities. Again, a result of chronic stress, chronic anxiety, chronic depression, or in this case, chronic COVID, if you will. You just feel burned out. We've all been there at our jobs, maybe even with life. Just you're burned out. You're tired of it. You can't go on. Well, that's where some of us have gone during these turbulent times with COVID. We've just become emotionally numb. And these people tend to feed that numbness with alcohol, drugs, fear, anxiety, addictive behaviors. Interesting little fact. Online alcohol sales. Not every state can do this, but most can. Online alcohol sales went up 243% mid-March. Wow. Can't live without our alcohol. We have to become less sensitive to this negativity. We have to turn the TV off, put the social media down, and concentrate on good mental health. Have a limited amount of time that you spend on media. Spend better time with family, even friends from a social distance. Taking a walk in the park, walk around the block, time with your pets. Focus on your breath. Breathing. Breathing is an amazing thing. Ask anyone in yoga and meditation. Breathing is a soul saver. Think about gratitude. Think about what you're grateful for. What good things in your life that you have to be blessed for. When you think that you're overwhelmed and you can't go on anymore and your anxiety is through the roof,
Get up, walk, get some fresh air, do some deep breathing. Think about what you're grateful for. When you feel overwhelmed by a problem that you face, identify it as something small. Step back, analyze it, take it apart, and say, okay, look, can I change this? Do I have any control over this situation? And first of all, if you don't have any control over it, then it's out of your hands. If you do have control over it, don't face the problem as a large problem. Face the problem in pieces and parts. What can I do right now to change the attitude, to change my feelings, to change the situation? When we look out at the world right now, it can be a negative place. Cases are rising, social injustice is still there. We have politics and elections coming up. We have economy that is still teetering. We have education that is on again, off again, on again, off again. There's lots of stuff going on. And yes, we should be understanding of that, and we should know what's going on, but we don't have to be consumed by it. We don't have to ruminate over it. Mental health is for everyone, particularly now. We have to find ways to find our health, to disconnect in a healthy way and get on with our lives and live. Just thoughts, peeps, just thoughts. COVID's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I just wanted to touch base because it's been a minute. See how everybody's doing. As always, I wish you health and safety, and I welcome any comments. Until next time, peace.